Good evening, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Rashmita, and I'm the event planner for Microsoft Reactor India. The session will run over the next 60 minutes, including Q&A. So please post all your questions in the chat section, and our speaker will try to answer most of it. Before we begin, please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We are all here to learn together, so please be respectful of other people's views, understanding of differences, being kind and considerate in the way you engage. The chat will be open throughout, and we do encourage you all to participate. I would now like to welcome Navika, our speaker for today's session. Navika is a Microsoft MVP in the Developer Technologies category. She is a BTech IT graduate at IIT Madras. Her work has been appreciated within the community, and she has been awarded the Women's Achievement Award of India. But for now, I will hand over to Navika to begin the session. Over to you, and let me bring Navika in. Hi, Navika.
Hi, Rashmita. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for such a kind welcome. Let's start with today's session. Welcome to dive into Microsoft Azure virtual machines and storage. Rashmita has already introduced me to you all, but a quick introduction from my side as well. So, hey everyone, I am Navika and I am going to be the speaker for today's session. I am a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional in the developer technologies. Being a BTech IT graduate, currently I'm a graduate student at IIT Madras and pursuing diploma in programming. Tech communities has always been an integral part of my journey. I have been a Gold Microsoft Student Ambassador for 3 years, and I have got some amazing opportunities to speak in big tech platforms like speaker at Microsoft Ignite 2021 and Global Azure 2022. I have been a lot into judging and mentoring technical hackathons. So, for instance, I have judged Microsoft Imagine Cup Junior, and I have also got the opportunity to mentor Tech Together Hackathon at Seattle and Chicago. I am very passionate about tech for good. That means using technology for a good cause. I have been working closely with the sector with the Microsoft tech teams become more confident and self-sufficient. For my work, I have been awarded with Boom's Achiever of India, Primarika Spirit of Community Service Awardee, and India Book of Record holders. That's a little bit about myself. I have mentioned my social media credentials on the screen, my LinkedIn and Twitter ID. Please feel free to connect with me over there. And I would love to interact with each one of you after today's session and do give the feedback as well. So, without any further ado, let's get started. Towards the end, I would be taking up the questions. Mostly, my session will answer all your questions. Hopefully, everything gets covered within it. But still, if you have any doubts, you can put it on the chats and I'll take up the questions and I'll be more than happy to answer them. Or you can reach out to me also later on if you get any question in your mind. I'll be more than happy to answer that. So, yes, please do connect with me. So here's the agenda for today's session. I would be giving a quick overview as to what is Azure. I know most of you present here would be obviously aware of what Azure is, but still, those of you who aren't, that much aware about it. So quick 2 to 3 minutes introduction. Then we would be moving into virtual machines. So today's session would be mostly hands-on session, right? Wherein I would be giving you practical demos. So we would be creating simple virtual machine. Then we would be creating a web server within it. Then we would be heading over to Azure storage. We would be studying about different types of Azure storage. We would be creating a blob storage, which would be accessible via a browser. And then we would be moving ahead with Azure files, and I would be creating a shareable drive. So that's what today's agenda looks like. So let's dive into Azure VMs and Azure storage then. All right. So, what is Microsoft Azure? Definitely, Microsoft Azure is a cloud computing platform provided by Microsoft. Now, while you use Azure, we have to just focus on building, testing, and deploying our applications, right? Rest, the hardware maintenance and everything is taken care at the cloud provider's end. So it is a consistent hybrid cloud that provides us with a multi-layered security, and that actually answers our questions also as to why we should use Azure. So more than 95% of the Fortune 500 companies, they trust their businesses on Azure. And the best part about using Azure is that you don't have any upfront cost, right? We have They follow this pay as you go model. That means we have to just pay for the resources that we are using. So that's what it says, right? The consumption based model, that is pay as you go model. Now Microsoft Azure has huge amount of services. It has more than 200 services, and that too in different categories. So I'm just naming a few. For instance, you have IoT, you have compute, you have networking, development tools, AI, ML, etc., etc. And out of all those services and categories, I have mentioned two services over here. One is Azure Compute, and the other one is Azure Storage. And that's what we are going to do today. Now, within Azure Compute, also, we would be studying virtual machines, to be very much specific. And in Azure Storage, definitely we would be studying about different types of, storages. So, just giving a very high level background about Azure Compute, or rather compute power in general. So whenever we do our daily activities online, right? Let's suppose we are sending an email, or we are booking something online, we're doing this online shopping, etc. So what are we actually doing? We are interacting with the cloud based servers, right? Wherein we send a request, it gets processed at the cloud provider's end, and then we get a response. So that's how our daily activities seems to be. So at the end of the day, we as customers or users or consumers, we all are dependent on the cloud based servers. Now Azure provides us with this opportunity wherein we can create our resources depending on our needs and requirements. So for instance, if I want to have more control over the maintenance of my resource, then I can actually create a virtual machine. So, heading over to our first topic of today, that is Azure Virtual Machines. Now, what is Azure Virtual Machine? So, this is a very interesting topic. So, Azure Virtual Machine is nothing but an emulation of physical computers, or the desktops or the laptops that we are just sitting in front of right now. So, Azure Virtual Machine basically consists of an operating system and a hardware. Operating system, it could be Windows or Linux, and your hardware is taken care, the maintenance of that is taken care at the cloud provider's end, right? Azure's end. A virtual machine includes virtual processor, network resources, and memory storage as well. And these all entire things gives it a look as if we are actually working on our local machine right now. Correct. We can download applications. We can set the operating systems as per our requirement. So that makes it pretty much customizable. um, I have told you about the similarities of Azure VM with the physical computers, but now the question arises: then what is the difference? So the difference is that we don't have to buy the machine, we don't have to buy anything, right? And we don't even have to maintain the hardware. Everything is done as per the at the cloud provider's end. So that is the difference. It's like a virtualization, right? So that is the difference between our local machine and Azure VM. Now, there are certain things that we have to keep in mind while creating an Azure VM. Now, the very first thing is that we have to give a name to our VM, right? So name is very important. So not only VM, even generally, when whatever resources that we create in Azure, through my personal experience, I always say that naming convention is very important. Whatever resource you create, and today we would be creating quite a few resources, and you will get to know whenever you create a resource, it should be a resource. The name should be unique, and it should actually, let us know that what that entire resource is doing. If you're creating something for demo or for testing, that should actually reflect in its name as well. So that's what I usually follow. The second thing is location. Location is extremely important. Depending where you want to deploy the particular resource, where you want to create a VM, you can select the resource. The third parameter is the size of the virtual machine. Now, when I say size, so I'll be showing everything in the demo as well. well, but it's just a quick, high level overview so that it becomes easy for you to understand. So when I say size, so we have these different sizes available for a virtual machine, and depending on your requirement and the purpose of the virtual machine, you can select that particular size. And size is also directly proportional with the price. The more the size, the price also increases. Then the fourth one is an operating system. So we get an option of selecting an image, the operating system. So it could be Windows, Linux, depending on what you require. So usually, the price of Linux VM is lesser than that of Windows VM. That's definitely there. But again, how you want to use it, for what purpose, you can select your operating system. So these four parameters that I've just told you, it pretty much lets us know that our virtual machines are completely customizable, and we can customize it and create it according to our needs and requirements. And the fifth and the most important thing is we need a resource group to create a virtual machine. In fact, I have dedicated a separate slide of the deck for Azure Resource Group, because this is extremely important. Not only from the point of view of creating a VM, but even in general. Like today, we would be creating storage account as well. So for both the purposes, we do need a resource group. So what is a resource group? I'm sure you must be aware, but just reiterating once again. So, Azure Resource Group is basically a container, right, that holds all the related resources for a particular Azure solution. So, in layman's language, it is like a bag within which you put different items, and the items is nothing but your resources. So the step one of creating any resource is actually creating a resource group. Okay, that is the base step. So that is what you're supposed to do. Once a resource group is created, then you can deploy different resources within it. Now there are a few things that you have to keep in. So before we move forward, one more thing which I would like to tell you is, you can see this particular structure that on the deck that I have for you. So this is a structure that is actually followed. So we have a subscription, that is the topmost level. Within that, we have different resource groups. And then within each resource group, we can have different resources. So that is the hierarchy that we follow in Azure, right? Um, Now, there are a few things that we have to keep in mind while creating an Azure resource group. So, whatever resources that we have deployed within a particular resource group, they all will follow the same life cycle, right? Life cycle, as in if we update, we make certain changes at the resource group level, they all will reflect in the resources as well. Or let's suppose I delete the entire resource group. So, whatever resources are there within the resource groups, even they end up getting deleted. So, for example, I'm creating a virtual machine and I put it in one particular resource group. If I delete the resource group only, then my virtual machine will automatically get deleted. There is no need for me to go and delete the virtual machine separately. I do that at the resource group level. All the resources within it will get deleted automatically. So that's what we mean when we say that all the resources follow the same life cycle. The second thing is that if your resource is in, so each one resource can just belong to one resource group. That means if I'm creating a VM named VM1, I cannot put it in two different resource groups. That is not possible. One resource will particularly be available or will be deployed exclusively in one resource group only. And the third thing is that in a resource group, we can have resources from different regions, from different locations. That is perfectly fine. Again, very, very customizable. It depends on us. In a resource group, I can just put one resource. I can put 5 virtual machines. I can put different types of resources. Everything's allowed. So that's a bit about a resource group. Now that you have this overview about what is a resource group and what is a virtual machine. Let's quickly head over to our Azure portal and quickly create a virtual machine. So this is how, so basically we can create our resources via Azure portal, CLI, and PowerShells. These are these three different ways via which you can create your resources. I am doing that through virtual machine today. Sorry, through the portal today, because that's going to be a little bit more easier to understand. So I'm sure you must be aware about all these things. So this is your Cloud Shell. When you open this, you have these two options of Bash and PowerShell. Post that, just quickly giving you a quick navigation through the portal. Here is your notification bar. So whatever you create, whatever things you're creating, whatever notifications are there, they show up here in the notifications bar, right? Then here, whatever you've recently opened in your portal, whatever you've created, here's where it shows. When you go to the extreme left, you see the portal menu. These are different blades over here. And you can see these different resources. You can go on to all resources. You will be able to see all the resources over here. Else, if you want to create a resource, you can simply search it over here in the search bar and you can simply create it. So that's a quick navigation via the Azure portal. Now, the first thing, as I said, first thing first, let's create a resource group. So here we go. Okay. So this is the option for subscription, right? So currently I have one subscription available with me. But in case you have 3 4 different subscriptions, it depends on you. If you recall that image that I showed you, in which subscription you want to create the resource group and deploy the resources. So I have selected my subscription, and I have already created one resource group, but I'll be creating one here. So here's your resource group. I'll give a unique name to it. So I'll give demo RG2. Region or location is East US. I usually select that region because it has high availability. Simple. Then we would be reviewing and creating it. Once all the validation is passed, we can create it. So creating a resource group usually doesn't take that much of time. Here it has been created. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a virtual machine. Now that I have a resource group with me, I would be creating a virtual machine. I would be deploying my virtual machine within that resource group. So as you can see, I have one virtual machine created by the name demo VM1, but I would be creating a new one. So we go on to create, and then we have this option of Azure virtual machine. I click on it, and since I already have created resource group, so I select demo RG2. Then I give a name to my virtual machine. So let's suppose I'll say demo VM2. Region remains the same. Then here is the availability options. I am not doing anything onto it. Then here is the images. So this is basically the base operating system for the VM, right? So that's what I just told you. So we have so many options of selecting, what type of operating system do you want to run on your virtual machine. I am selecting Windows Server 2019 data center. Rest, everything remains the same. Here is your pricing model, that is actually your size, what type of virtual machine you want to create for of what size. I'm going ahead with the default one that's given. Otherwise you have other options as well. I'll show you that once I've created this virtual machine. So let me give a username to it. Password, everything should be unique. You should be following all the rules to create the password and the username. Once that is done, just pay attention to this. The inbound ports that have been by default selected, it is RDP. Other options are HTTP, HTTPS, and SSH, along with the port numbers in the brackets. I am not doing anything to it. I am just letting it be like this. And I have by default RDP selected as my inbound port, which is pretty much fine. And then if you go on to next, so you have these different options of disks and networking. You can put your VM in a particular virtual network as well. We are not going that much in depth into it, but that's what this particular networking bar does for us. Then we have the option of applying tags to our virtual machine. And then finally, so these all things are actually optional, right? Disk, networking, management, monitoring, advanced tags. These all things are optional. So you can actually directly review and create as well. But I thought of quickly giving you an overview as to these all things are also there. And, when you get much more in depth into virtual machines, you can actually set these options as well. So now I'm going to review and create. My validation has been passed. And here you can see, this is the cost of my virtual machine. This is based on the size, right? So the size that I actually selected, based on that, my rate of this particular machine would be approx 5 rupees INR per hour, right? That means rupees 5 per hour according to DS1 standard virtual machine, the size that I've selected. Now I'm simply clicking on create, and now the virtual machine will be created. It depends. It usually takes around 2 minutes or so to get created. So we'll have to wait till then. Otherwise, I do have one more VM created, but I wanted to take you through the entire process, and that is the reason I created a new virtual machine so that you understand the process. The deployment is in progress. We would be seeing 6 parameters that would be created. So you can see 4 are done, 2 more to go. And once all these 6 parameters are created, which shows up here on the status, that means my virtual machine has been deployed. The 5th one is in process and the last one to go. So here you can see in the notifications section that the deployment is in progress. So whatever deployments we are doing in our virtual on our portal, and whatever things are getting deleted, updated, everything shows up here in the notification as a part of activity log. We wait for a few more seconds. So once the virtual machine would get created, I will quickly go through the different blades that are over there in the virtual machine and post that we would be creating a web server via the virtual machine. Yeah, done. So the deployment has been succeeded. So exactly, I think it's taken exact 2 to 3 minutes, not more than that. So now where do I see this newly deployed virtual machine? So different options. Either you can go directly to the resource through that particular bar that was being shown over there. Else you can click here on the virtual machines, and here is your second virtual machine that we just created, demo VM2. Okay. All right. So I'll just be running the virtual machine, but prior to that, okay, so let me do that actually first, and then I would be taking you through all these different, at least a few of important blades. But first, let me run the virtual machine. So how do we run the virtual machine? So first, as you can see, this public IP address, I copy this to my clipboard. I just sort of copy this particular public IP address. Then I go on to my run window. I open the remote desktop connection. I paste this particular IP that I just copied from here. Just recheck it whether it's the same, and then connect it. We have to give the username and password. So if you're able to recall the username that I just gave, we have to give that particular username and the password of this particular username. Done. And I click on OK. Yes. And it's getting connected to my virtual machine. Here it is. So it usually takes time to come up because there are a lot of applications going on the back end. So we have to wait for a few seconds so that everything is up. Here it is. Here it is. Still, server manager will open by default. So we'll wait for it. Once that is done, then we are ready to work on the virtual machine. Here it is. So this is my virtual machine, right? Okay. So this is how the virtual machine looks like. Isn't it same as your, the desktop that you've been working on? So you have your time, and then you have my computer. You have a server manager within it. So okay, this usually takes a little bit time to work. It's comparatively a little bit slower at times, but no worries. So it's absolutely the same. You have the start button, you have everything is, you have Microsoft Edge, you have a web browser, PowerShell, all the things just same as that you have on your local computer. Plus you can download also. If you want to download an application, for instance, I don't have Chrome over here, I can download that as well. And the IP address of this particular virtual machine that I just pasted while on the remote desktop connection, that shows up over here, right? So this is how my virtual machine looks like. Now the next task that we have to do is that we have to create a web server. So how do we do that? The first thing is that here we if you s- so once you run the virtual machine, there is this server manager that opens by default. In case it doesn't open, um, then you have an option of opening it right from here as well. So you can go onto the start button, you can open from here, but since it's directly open, so I've let it be like this. So I go on to add roles and feature, click on next, next, next. I'm not supposed to do anything. Here I'll get an option of selecting web server IIS. I check on that and I add it as a feature. Next, next, and next once again. And I install it, right? I click on install. So the installation is taking place. As it reflects over here, the installation has started on this particular virtual machine. Again, we'll have to wait for a minute or so because it's a little slow. So we'll have to wait. And then this particular feature of web server IIS gets installed over here in this machine. So here's the progress bar that you're able to see. Once this entire thing is completed, it gets reflected over here itself. It's been completed 62%. Usually it's done within a few seconds, but today it's taking a little time, but we'll just wait for it. Because without installing this, you cannot um, you cannot create a web server. Okay, done. So the installation has been succeeded. I'll just close it, minimize this. Actually, I can close it as well, but okay. Then I go to the my PC of this computer, right? I go to this PC. I go to my C drive. I go to this particular folder of init pub. Then I go to this particular folder of www root. Double click on it. Here I can see two files. One is HTML document and the other one is PNG. I don't need any one of those, so I can simply delete it. And I create a new file over here. Simply creating a new text document. That's pretty much simple to understand. I'll give the name index.html. Done. Now let me quickly write something over here. Welcome to today's session. Okay, done. I save this, close it. But this is still a text document, so I am supposed to change it to an HTML format. So I go to view, file name extensions, and here, see, it is a txt document, right? So I go to rename. And how do we change this into HTML? Nothing. Simply remove this txt extension. Done. Now this is an HTML document. Done. Now, what our aim is that this particular IP address, when I put it up there on the browser, it should show me that particular file that I've just created. So let's quickly check whether that happens or not. And I want even you all to think what's going to happen, whether I'll be able to see that particular document or not. Here it is. So we wouldn't be able to see that document right now, as of now, by putting this particular IP address. Now, what is the reason behind that? Now, the reason is that if you recall, while I created the virtual machine, I had just enabled RDP and nothing else. See, if I go back to this particular page, it will say this site can't be reached or maybe timeout or timeout sometimes. But any which ways, it wouldn't run because I had just enabled RDP. And we know that whenever we run anything on web browser, so what's the port number that it works on? 80, right? HTTP, or that's for HTTP, or maybe HTTPS. So how do we do that? So here we have these different blades present, and under settings we have this particular blade of networking. So this particular blade, basically, networking is used to control the traffic to our resource, to or from our resource. So for in that scenario, we have these two different rules. We have inbound port rules and we have outbound. So if you see in inbound, only RDP has been allowed and nothing else. So I would be adding an inbound port rule stating to allow HTTP access as well. So how do we do that? We go to TCP service, we select HTTP, port number 80, destination port, and the priority, I'll be making it 200. So priority, the least the priority, the least the number, the higher would be the priority. The name, I'll let this be, nothing else. Let me quickly recheck it. HTTP 80, yep, done. And I add it. So that means this particular, once I've added, now this rule has means that now this particular HTTP port number 80 would be allowed, right? And now if I rerun it, I don't know whether it'll reflect right now, maybe after some time, I'll be able to see that particular file over here that I just created on the virtual machine. So at times it does not reflect the changes within a few minutes, right? It takes a little bit more time. But let's see if it's not done. Maybe I can repaste this link and check. So let me repaste this particular IP address. Or if this doesn't work, then what we can do is we can just refresh this entire thing, go back to our yeah, see, now this particular file is visible to me, right? Welcome to today's session, and this is what I actually created on my virtual machine, which is now accessible via a browser on my local machine. So that is how you can create a simple, this was a very, very simple web server, and I hope that you must have understood this. The only trick here over here was that I never allowed the HTTP port at the first go, and that's the reason it wasn't showing. And that I did on purpose because I wanted to show you that how you can actually make changes to these port rules via networking. I wouldn't be going that much in depth into it, to be honest, because networking is altogether a different topic. And if I get into all these things, then it might be a little confusing for you also. I'm not getting into it. Any which ways, that was about creating a web server. Um, Quickly, I'll just take a minute to go through these different blades over here. So this is the activity log. So whatever activities that I do on my virtual machine, they are updated over here. So for example, I've created and updated a virtual machine 12 minutes back. So that's over here. It tells me that it's via which subscription. Then I can apply tags to my virtual machine. Here is the networking blade wherein I just added the port rules which you saw. Then here is an option of size. So though I had selected a particular size, but then you have an option of resizing your virtual machine any moment. So now, for example, once this session would be over, I would just be deleting this virtual machine because I don't need this virtual machine, right? But in case there is something you're deploying an application within a virtual machine, then you can, not delete it. So there is an option of stopping it. I'll just show you, and then you can resize your virtual machine to a little lesser size, so that saves you on the cost part. So here it is. I have selected the DS1 V2 general purpose virtual machine, right, which has around 3.5 GB of RAM, and temporary storage is up to 7 GB, and etc. etc. And here is the price towards the end, right? So you have 3,800. These all are like per month in INR. And similarly, it keeps on increasing. So I had selected the default one because I don't have to do much on this virtual machine, so this would suffice. That's it. So you have an option of resizing. You can select any one particular and you can resize it if you think that your virtual machine it needs more space, so you can just resize it. And here is an option of stopping your virtual machine, and once you are done, like once you're back again on your virtual machine, then you can start it. That's the way that can help you save your price, your cost as well. So that's about virtual machines. So we have created a virtual machine and we have also created a web server on it. Now I would be quickly hovering on to storage. Okay. So yeah, or I've already created a virtual machine. These were the steps that I actually mentioned. We have gone through all these steps, so that's why I'm not going through those all the steps once again. Okay, now coming on to Azure storage, that is the second topic for today. Um, let's talk about storage in general, right? So, like whenever daily activities that we do, right? Uh, what do we actually do with the data? Either we read the data or we write the data, correct? Let's suppose I'm looking up at a price of something online, some online shopping. That means I'm reading the data. Or if I'm clicking a picture, that means I'm writing the data. So these are the two things that we do with the data. Now, the most important part of storage, cloud computing storage, or let's be specific to Azure storage, is that it provides us ways wherein we can store different types of data in different type of ways. So in general, if I talk about a storage, let's suppose if I want to store a text document, I can simply store it in a file on a disk, right? Or if I want to store something like an address book, I can opt for a more structured format, correct? So that's something that Azure storage helps us with. um, And this was a very simple example, and I'm sure this must have answered your question as to why we should use Azure storage for storing our data. The first thing is availability. We know that Azure has its data centers all over the globe, and that makes it highly accessible and available. It is pretty much scalable. So as it's one of the it's one of the quality of Azure, that it is scalable. The scalability is one of the most important quality of Azure. That means if I feel at any moment of time that I need more space, that I've already taken from Azure, and I need more space to store my data, then I can add up more space to my existing space, and I have to pay for the extra space that I've added. And the moment I feel that, okay, I don't need this extra space, let it go, and I'll be fine with what I had prior to that. I can simply let go of the extra space, and then I have to pay for the current space that I am currently using. So that's scalability. According to your needs and requirement, you can actually add up more space, or you can let it go. And of course, security is one of the most, I mean, any organization, even us for that matter, individuals, we would always be wanting that our data should be, in a highly secure in a highly secure environment. And that's what Azure storage does. It's great for data backup, etc. So that's a little bit about Azure storage. So that's a quick difference between what is the difference between on premises and Azure storage. Nothing much about it. It's pretty much but obvious. Now, coming on to different types of storage in Azure. So we have these five different types of storage. We have Azure Blob, Azure Files, Queues, Tables, and Disks. Talking about Azure Blob, so Azure Blob is basically used to store unstructured data. That means binary data and text files. Now, all this data is actually accessible via web browser as well. Now, the second one is Azure Files. Azure File works on SMB protocol, server managed block protocol, and it is used to manage your file shares for the cloud. Then we have Azure Queues. Um, all right, so here comes the difference between Azure Blob and Azure Files, that both are actually used to store unstructured data, but the difference lies is that in Azure Files we create a shareable drive. We share the access. Whereas in Blob, our data can be, we have an option of making it available directly on the web browser, and that's not something that makes it different from Azure Files. Now, the third one is Azure Queues. So that basically acts like a messaging store between, communication and messaging between the applications. So, the notifications that we keep on getting on messages, and those automatic messages, that can be done with the help of Queues and Azure. And then, of course, we have Azure Tables. So that is used for schema-less storage of structured data. So we have these entities, rows, and columns. So that's what Azure Tables implies. And then we have Azure Disks. Um, we have just done virtual machine, and that actually uses Azure Disks. So that's a quick high level overview of different types of storages in Azure. Mostly files and blobs are used the most, and that is the reason we would be doing that today. Okay, now before moving forward, it's very important for us to know different redundancy options for the storage account in Azure. Uh, okay, now, so whenever we work on Azure storage, the very first thing that we have to do after creating a resource group is to create a storage account, right? Prior creating a storage account, it's very important for us right now to know what are these different redundancy options. Redundancy means how secure our data would be, right? So we have these four different redundancy options. The first one is LRS, that stands for locally redundant storage. Then we have ZRS, zone redundant storage, GRS, geo redundant storage, and then we have GZRS, that is geo zone redundant storage. When I talk about locally redundant storage, that is the first one. So basically, what happens over here is that our data is synchronously copied in one particular primary region three times. Correct. Um, for a better understanding, I can say it gets copied in three different servers. That's what LRS means. Though its cost is the least as compared to the other three options. But the disadvantage is that, let's suppose, there is a failure at one particular data center, then it becomes difficult to retrieve the data that you have stored. So, but yes, like for example, for today I would be going ahead with LRS because I am not storing any some major important data in it. So it'll work fine for me if I go ahead with LRS, plus the cost is also comparatively less as compared to the other three options. Now, the other one is ZRS, that is the zone redundant storage. It is the level higher up to what LRS did. So here your data is synchronously copied three times in three different zones, right? So even if your one data center, there's a failure at one data center, you still have two other data centers which can retrieve your data, and that's there for your data backup. So yes, if not LRS, you can go ahead with ZRS. That's a little bit more expensive than LRS, obviously because of its functionality and its data backup quality. And then we have GRS and GZRS. Those are the most high pricing ones, because here your data is three times synchronously copied in the primary region and then in the secondary region as well. So you have this good data backup facility in the bottom two categories of redundancy options. So that's a quick high level. You should be knowing what are these different redundancy options in Azure, and it's important as well to know. Okay, so let's quickly hover on to our portal and let me create a storage account. So I already have it open over here, so I'll open the storage account. I don't have any storage accounts created so far, so it's not showing anything. I click on create. Okay, very simple to create. I'll select a resource group. So I select demo RG2, the one that I just created. I'll be giving a storage account name. Okay, so again, we need to be very careful. It should be unique. So let me give the name storage status. Okay, this is my storage account. I go ahead with the standard one. And see here, the redundancy option is given as geo redundant storage, but I don't need that, of course. So I'm checking on the LRS option, and that's it, nothing else. And I'll quickly go on to review, and then I'll create. It's running for the final validation. Once the validation has been passed, yeah, it's been passed. Now I'm creating the storage account. Again, it'll take a few seconds to do so. Submitting the deployment. Deployment is in progress, and just a few seconds more to go and our storage account would be ready. Yes, done. So our deployment has succeeded and completed, and the storage account has been created. So you can go to the resource directly actually. So this time I'm going directly to the resource. This is the name of my store account that I gave. So here it is. It's just loading. Here it is. Let's give it a little bit time. Yeah, done. So here is my storage account that I've created. You can see all the parameters over here that I selected, right? The time when it was created, everything is over here. The resource group, the location, subscription, name, ID, everything. Now here, if you see towards the left corner, the left blade of on the screen, you have these four different types of storages, right? Containers, file share, queue, and tables. Now the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to work on the blob storage, right? So again, let me quickly move on to my deck. Now that I've created a storage account, now we're coming on to the blob storages. um Now, you already know what blob storage is, right? So it's basically used to store unstructured data that could be binary data or text files. And all that data is actually, we have an option which can be directly accessible via the web browser. So that is what we actually going to do today. That's the first task, and then we would be moving ahead with Azure, which with Azure files. So that's what Azure Blob does. You can use for data backup. You can use to save your, streaming your audio and videos, and for storing files, etc. So that's the use cases of using Blob storage. Okay, as you can see on your screen, so this is the structure that we actually follow. So we have the account, right? We have an account name, storage account, that we have already done. Now, within the storage account, we first create a container, and then within that container, we store our blobs. So, for instance, I've taken a very hypothetical situation wherein I have created a storage account by this particular name, right? And the container's name is pictures, and then I have stored two pictures and images within it. And similarly, I can have one more container which its name is maybe movies, and then it can have a small clip within it, right, a video within it. So that's what we actually follow. This is the entire structure. So if you want to create a blob storage, you will have to create a container for that purpose. Okay. um, Before heading over onto the portal, let me quickly give you a brief about different access tiers in blob storage. So we have these three tiers, that is hot access, cool access, and archive. As the name suggests, hot access, we can actually save, if you want to frequently visit your data and access your data, that's when you should actually set the access tier to hot. Cool, maybe if you want to access your data once in a month, or maybe once in 20-25 days, that's when you should set this particular access tier to cool. And the third one goes without saying, as the name suggests, archive. If you don't want to access your data, just maybe want to access it once in a year, with that much of time gap, that's when you store your data and you set the access tier to archive. So this is again important. You should be aware of it when you're working on blob storage. So that's about it. Quickly heading over to my portal. Okay, here it is. So now what am I supposed to do? We go on to containers, right? I'm on the storage account. I go to the container. I'll be creating a container. So here is the option. Give it any name. Let me give a name. Pick, okay? Or yeah. Or actually let me give a name container one. As I always say, that your naming convention should be unique and understandable. So I've given container one and I create it. Once that is done, here it is. It'll be reflecting over here. Click over here. And I changed this access level to blob anonymous only, because that's when I will be actually able to access it via web browser. Once that is done, so now if you click, you will see that it's blob anonymous. Previously it was private, so that I wouldn't be able to publicly view it. So that's the reason I've changed it to blob anonymous. Then I click on upload and I just select some file from my local machine. I go to desktop and I just end up selecting some image and I upload it. Okay, the image has been uploaded. Now I click on this image and I see this particular URL over here. I just simply copy it and I paste it here on the web browser. And this is the image which I uploaded, and you can see this is publicly available on the web browser via this particular link. So that's how we work on blob storage, right? This was the image that I actually uploaded, and you can see via this link. I just pasted this link on the web browser, and I'm able to see this particular image. And that's how we work with the blob storage. It's pretty much easy, nothing tough. Now, that's about it, and blob storage is nothing tough to understand. Now, we would be working with the Azure files. So, here it is. Okay. So what is Azure Files? So Azure File basically offers us with fully managed file share in the cloud, right? It is accessible via the SMB protocol, server message block protocol, and we can mount our file on the cloud or even on premises, on Windows, Linux, or Mac OS. The use cases of Azure File is, it is used to create a shared access. You can, put up your application, lift and shift your applications, and it's used for data backup, data storage, and that's the entire purpose of using Azure Files. So now our task in Azure File is basically, so the task that we would be performing right now with Azure Files is that I would be creating a shareable drive, right? And let's do that, which would be shareable drive on my VM. So whatever, it'll be like a two-way conversation, right? Communication. Whatever I put up here on the portal, it'll be visible on my VM, and with whatever file I upload on my VM, it's going to reflect over here on the portal. So that's the task for Azure Files, creating a shareable drive. So I'm back on my storage account that I just created. I go to the second type of storage, that is file share, and I click on file share. Let me create a file name. So file one, contain only lowercase letters. Okay, file one. Done. Everything remains same. Let me quickly check. I can change all these tiers, but I leave it as it is, and I create it. Okay, my file has been created. When I click on this file one, I have to upload a file. So before uploading, let me create a file. So I'll quickly go onto my notepad and let me create a file. Okay. So I'm creating a file on the notepad because I don't have any created as of now. So save as, and let me save it on the desktop only. R file. The name is R file, and I'm saving it on the desktop. Done. Okay, so now I'm uploading a file over here. The file that I just created, it was on the desktop, R file txt. I click it, open it, and upload it. Done. Now my next task is to create. Now I've created a file storage over here, and within that I've uploaded a file. Now my next task is to create a shareable drive. Correct. In order to do that, now we need to be a little bit careful over here. So I select this particular file of mine and I go on to connect option over here. So there are different ways as to how we can create a shareable file, but I'm following this way, and that's what I'll be teaching you today. So there is an option when you click on connect, there is an option of show script. This is a script that is available over here. So I mean, there are different options of creating a shareable file. One is that you can directly sort of run this on PowerShell, and it's going to be created, and the other way is that we are going to do it manually, and that's what I'll be doing it today. So I copy this entire script, okay, onto my clipboard, and I open a new notepad on my local machine, and I paste that entire. So this is a script that I just copied. um all right, so okay, so this is the particular root path that we'll be needing it, right? So I just quickly copy this particular path and I go back to my virtual machine that I just created. It was okay, this one. So I go on to the this PC of my virtual machine, right? I right click and I go to map network drive, the third option. I click on this, so this will ask me for the path to the folder, and I took this path from the script that I was able to see on my portal. So I simply paste that. Here it is, and I click on finish. Now it's saying attempting to connect. It has been connected, and now it's asking me for my username and password. Now, here it is very important. We do not have to give the username and password for my virtual machine. I have to give the username and password from where? From this particular script that I've copied. So here's the username, that is localhost storage, this one. Let me copy it, go back to my virtual machine. Okay, and I paste it. And then again, password is available in the script itself. Here it is, a little bit long. Be careful, you copy the entire password. Okay, let me copy it, and now I'm pasting it. Where am I pasting it? On my virtual machine here. And I click on OK. Here it is, done. If I go back to my this PC, see, you're able to see this particular file over here, right? This particular drive over here by the name file-1. And if you recall, I created the same file-1, where here on my Azure portal, right? See, the name of the file name was file-1, and then within that, I uploaded my rfile.txt, right? Now let's go back to my Azure VM, and let's quickly open this drive that has just been mounted over here and see. You are able to see this particular file, rfile.txt. Welcome to today's session that I actually uploaded from my local machine on the Azure portal, and now it's visible over here. What do I say? I say it's a two-way, it's a two-way communication. That means it is a shared access. So let me actually create a new file over here, and let's see whether it's going to show up there or not on my Azure portal. So let's give a name, vm.txt. The reason that I'm giving vm.txt is that it'll help us identify that this is the file that I created via this VM. Anything I can write, this file is created via VM. I save this and done. That's it. Now let's go back to our portal and let's refresh this and see whether we are able to see that particular file over here or not. Usually it takes time also to reflect over here, but still, yes, it's here, vm.txt, and this is the file. You can download this file. There is an option, I believe, of download. Yes, you have an option of download. You can delete it as well. Whatever modifications that we do, it shows up over here. It shows the size, and it's a two-way communication, right? Whatever changes you make there on the VM, in the shared drive, it'll reflect over here, and whatever changes you make here, it'll reflect over there. So that's about Azure files, and I hope that you were able to understand. I think we are already 5 minutes up the time, but I just hope so. These were the steps that I performed for Azure files, and that's about it. And I really hope that this session was educative and informative for you. I tried covering up most of the part of storage, at least, and a high level overview, so that even the people who have joined this for the first time, I tried starting it right from the scratch, so that it becomes easier for you all to understand. So yeah, that's about it from my side. You can ask me questions if you want to. I'll try answering them. But if you have any doubts from this particular today's session, you can ask. Or if even if you have questions after the session, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. But let me check if I have any questions asked. I can just see one question which says that we can run it on partial. Of course, we can run it. I told you right in the beginning that we have options wherein we can run it on Azure portal. We can also do the same thing via partial. via CLI, but I chose Azure portal because I assume that there must be people who are joining it for the first time, and it'll be difficult for them comparatively to understand through PowerShell. But of course, we can run commandlets on PowerShell, create a resource group via it, and we can use ARM templates as well and all to deploy the resources. That's of course there. That's a high level, but yes, that's true. We can do it through PowerShell as well. So that's it from my side, and I cannot see any questions over here, but still, if you have any questions, do reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to answer you, and hope you found today's session really informative, and thank you so much for taking out your time and being a part of today's session. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, Navika, so much for the session, and thank you all for joining us today. Please do share your feedback about today's session. Also, please visit our Microsoft Reactor Bengaluru meetup for more upcoming session. Thank you all once again and enjoy the rest of your day.